The sky was the color of warm honey, the moment everything in my life shifted, and it happened so suddenly, so fiercely, that even now, when I close my eyes, I can still feel the sunlight trembling through the air as if it knew something incredible was about to happen. I remember gripping the handles of the old Ferris wheel cart, breath caught in my throat, heart beating far too fast for a summer afternoon. I remember the creak of metal, the wind brushing against my face, and the way the carnival noise below faded into a soft, distant hum. And I remember her Ariel, leaning forward as we reached the top, the highest point, where the world seemed impossibly still. We were almost there, almost descending, almost returning to the ground, when she whispered, trembling and full of something deeper than fear, "I don't want this ride to end." Before we go deeper into the story, if you believe in kindness, redemption, and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kind of Heart. Your support helps these stories reach more people who might need them. That moment on the Ferris wheel didn't happen at the end of our journey. It happened at the beginning, although I didn't know it then. At that time, my life felt like an unfinished sentence, an echo waiting for a voice, and I was stumbling through my days searching for something to hold on to. My name is Rowan Hale, and back then I was a quiet, unremarkable assistant at a small city library. I spent my mornings shelving books with meticulous care, my afternoons repairing frayed bindings, and my evenings walking home with the weight of silence pressing into my ribs. I had dreams once, large ones, bright ones, but life, with its quiet disappointments, had made me tuck them away like fragile letters never sent. Ariel entered my life in a way that still feels like fiction. It was a weekday, Wednesday maybe, and the sunlight streamed through the tall library windows in gold slants that cut through dust like tiny diamonds. I was repairing a water-damaged atlas, hands sticky with glue and patience, when she approached my table holding a stack of gardening books. She smiled, in a way that didn't ask permission, didn't hold back, didn't pretend. It was the kind of smile people often forget how to give when they've lived long enough to be disappointed. And I remember blinking, stunned by how warm it felt just to be near it. She said her name was Ariel Quinn, and she'd just moved to the city, looking to grow things, plants, herbs, maybe something bigger, she joked. I noticed her hands first, dirt beneath her nails, small scratches along her fingers, the kind of hands that belong to someone who insists on touching the world instead of watching it from a distance. She talked freely, like someone who'd been quiet too long and finally found a place to exhale, and I found myself listening in a way I hadn't listened to anyone in years. We became friends without planning to. It happened gradually. She'd bring me tea she brewed herself, made from herbs she claimed cured sadness and fatigue. She'd ask about the books I loved, about the parts of life I hadn't spoken about in ages. She invited me to visit her small rooftop garden, where basil and wildflowers grew in mismatched pots she rescued from thrift stores. The city skyline stretched behind her like a grand mural, and she'd stand there talking with her hands in the soil, the wind lifting her hair, sunlight catching in her eyes. And slowly, without either of us acknowledging it, something inside me began to thaw. But things changed. The day she showed up at the library with tired eyes and a stiffness in her shoulders that wasn't usually there. She placed her books down with trembling fingers and sat beside me without a word. The silence was heavy, like waiting for rain. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked as she admitted she'd been diagnosed with a rare heart condition, one that made every day feel uncertain. She told me she hadn't wanted to worry anyone. She hadn't wanted to be seen as fragile. She hadn't wanted to lose the joy she'd been fighting so hard to build. That moment cracked something open inside me, not just sadness, but fear. Fear of losing her before I had even learned how to tell her how much she mattered. Fear of holding hope too tightly. Fear of wanting something real. I remember reaching for her hand, hesitant at first, as if she might pull away. But she didn't. She squeezed back with surprising strength, and tears gathered in her eyes. It was after that day that my life shifted from routine to purpose. Ariel and I began spending time together outside the library. We explored small farmers markets, wandered through community parks, and visited lakes and botanical gardens. The world became larger with her in it, colors brighter, sounds richer, time more precious. She found joy in small things, the crispness of fresh apples, the hum of bees near lavender bushes, the way the wind rustled leaves like whispered conversations. I found joy simply being with her. We weren't lovers yet, not officially, but the way she'd look at me held a softness that felt like something waiting to bloom. We walked close, shoulders brushing, and sometimes she'd rest her head on my arm when she felt tired. Her heart condition meant there were days she was vibrant and full of laughter, and other days she moved slower, breathed heavier, and needed to sit often. But she never complained, never let fear take away the light she carried. If anything, she glowed brighter, as if determined to rewrite the shape of her life. The Ferris wheel moment came on a warm Saturday afternoon when we decided to visit a traveling carnival set up near the riverside. It wasn't something we'd planned. We stumbled upon it while walking through a cluster of food trucks and music tents. Ariel stopped, eyes wide, a smile tugging at her lips. She insisted we go in. The air smelled of cotton candy and roasted nuts, and children laughed as they darted between bright, colorful booths. We rode the carousel first. Then we tried a ring toss, where Ariel somehow won a tiny stuffed chick that she immediately handed to me, saying, "For your desk, so you remember to smile on days I'm not around." We ate lemon ice and watched performers juggle and sing, and eventually, we found ourselves standing before the old Ferris wheel towering against the sky. She looked at it with an expression I couldn't read. Part excitement, part longing, part something deeper. "Let's ride it," she whispered. So we did. As the wheel began to lift, we rose above the blinking carnival lights, above the crowds and music. The world looked soft and golden, peaceful in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. Ariel leaned her head on my shoulder, and I could feel her breath, steady but fragile. When we reached the very top, the cart paused, swaying gently. We were suspended there, above everything, the city, stretching in all directions like a quiet promise. I turned to her, and she was already looking at me. Her eyes glistened, full of unspoken thoughts. And then she whispered, "I don't want this ride to end." I understood then she wasn't talking about the Ferris wheel. She was talking about life, about us, about all the moments she feared she wouldn't get to keep. I reached for her hand, just as I had the day she told me about her diagnosis. But this time, I didn't hesitate. I told her I wasn't going anywhere, that whatever came, we would face it together. Her tears fell, and mine almost did too. That moment hanging between earth and sky felt like the first time I truly understood what it meant to hold on to someone. The weeks that followed were both beautiful and frightening. Ariel's condition fluctuated. Some days she was full of light. Other days she was weak and quiet. I stayed by her side through all of it. I went with her to doctor appointments, learned how to support her when her heart fluttered dangerously, and made her laugh when the heaviness got too thick. We grew closer, and eventually she admitted she'd loved me long before she said the words. I told her I felt the same. For once, the future didn't scare me, even if it was uncertain. There was one day, late in autumn, when the cold air held a bite. We sat together in her rooftop garden, wrapped in blankets, sipping her signature herbal tea. The sky was a soft blue, and the wind moved the last of the golden leaves across the ground. She looked at me with that familiar spark and said she wanted to start working on a community garden, a place where people could come together, heal, and grow things. But she worried she might not have the strength. I told her she had more strength than she realized. So we planned it, sketched out ideas, researched locations, and talked about her dream as if time were our greatest ally. And slowly, little by little, it began taking shape. Volunteers joined. Neighbors donated supplies. A small piece of land behind a community center was cleared, tilled, and brought to life. Ariel was there every step, even when she had to sit and rest. People gravitated toward her, her kindness, her warmth, her unshakable hope. The garden became a living testament to her spirit, vibrant with color and full of life. Then came the morning her heart faltered, more severely than it ever had before. We were walking to the garden together, her arm in mine, the sun rising gently over the rooftops. She stumbled, breath-catching, and I held her tightly. We rushed to the hospital, the world blurring around us. I stayed beside her bed, her hand in mine, whispering that I loved her, that she wasn't alone, that she didn't need to be afraid. She survived. Her recovery was slow, but she smiled when she woke, tired but alive. She looked at me, with tears streaming down her cheeks, and said, "I guess the ride isn't ending yet." It didn't end. Not then. Not now. She's still here, fragile but fighting, gentle but fierce, holding on to the life she's building piece by precious piece. And every time we return to that Ferris wheel, which we do at least once every summer, she squeezes my hand and whispers the same words, but now with a smile full of gratitude and love. I don't want this ride to end. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps these stories reach more people who may need a reminder that hope is still alive. Special request. Comment below what part of the story moved you the most.